Friends, let me tell you something very important. In life, one of the biggest mistakes you can make is blindly following someone else's path. Yes, you can learn from others, be inspired by others, even be guided by others. But you must never surrender the responsibility of your own thinking, your own decisions, and your own life. You were not born to be a copy. You were born to be an original. The world doesn't need another imitation. It needs you in your best, most authentic form. Too many people get stuck living by someone else's script. They go where the crowd goes, they do what the majority does, and they accept what everyone says without ever asking, is this right for me? Is this the life I want? You know, one of the greatest gifts you've ever been given is the fact that you are one of a kind. Out of billions of people, there has never been anyone exactly like you, and there never will be again. That's not just poetry. That's the truth. And yet, isn't it strange how so many people spend their lives trying to fit into someone else's mold? They trade in their uniqueness for acceptance. They abandon their original design so they can walk a path that was never meant for them. Let me tell you, that's a tragedy. The tragedy isn't that people fail. Failure is part of life. The tragedy is when someone never truly lives their own life because they were too busy copying someone else's. Now, don't misunderstand me. There's nothing wrong with learning from others. In fact, you'd be foolish not to. Success leaves clues, and you can save yourself a lot of pain by studying those clues. But here's the catch. You can borrow the idea without borrowing the identity. You can adopt the principle without adopting the personality. Think of it like tailoring a suit. You don't take someone else's suit and wear it just because it looks good on them. It might be too long in the arms, too tight in the shoulders, and completely wrong for your shape. Instead, you take the pattern, you take the design, and then you tailor it to fit you. Life works the same way. You can take lessons, methods, and wisdom from others, but you've got to shape them to fit your own life, your own strengths, your own goals. I've met people who follow a hero so closely that they lose sight of themselves. They start talking like them, dressing like them, even thinking like them. And while imitation might be a good starting point for learning, it's a terrible place to stay. Because if all you're doing is being a second-rate version of someone else, you'll never become a first-rate version of yourself. Here's the truth. People will respect you more when they see you standing in your own shoes, walking your own path, even if you stumble a bit. You'll be more attractive to the right opportunities when you show up as your authentic self. And you'll feel far more alive when you're creating your life instead of copying someone else's. I remember hearing someone say, "You were born an original, don't die a copy." That stuck with me. Think about it. If you just follow someone else's steps, exactly, you might end up where they are. But maybe where they are isn't where you were meant to go. You have your own mountains to climb, your own seas to cross, your own victories to win. Now, being original doesn't mean being stubborn or rejecting wisdom. No. It means taking wisdom and running it through the filter of your own judgment, your own experiences, and your own dreams. It means building a life that reflects you. See, life is like art. An artist can be inspired by other paintings, but the canvas they create is their own. They might borrow colors, learn techniques, study compositions, but the final work is uniquely theirs. Your life is your canvas, and the brush is in your hand. So I want you to remember this: when you give up your originality to be someone else's duplicate, you rob the world of the one thing only you can give, your voice, your vision, your contribution, and you rob yourself of the joy of living a life that's truly yours. Be inspired by many, but follow no one blindly. Learn from the best, but don't try to be them. Wear your own suit. Paint your own canvas. Write your own story, because the world doesn't need another them. It needs the best you. And that, my friend, is where your real power lives. One of the most valuable abilities you can develop is the ability to learn from others. It's a shortcut in life, because you don't have to make every mistake yourself to get the lesson. You can watch, You can listen, you can study, and you can take what works. But here's the caution. Learning from others does not mean becoming a carbon copy of them. It doesn't mean following their every move like you're tracing lines on a page. You see, success isn't a one-size-fits-all formula. What worked for someone else worked because it fit their personality, their timing, their resources, their environment, and maybe even their luck. If you try to copy it exactly, you might get part of their results or none at all because your starting point is different. The terrain you're walking on is different. And if you're not careful, you'll get discouraged. Not because the principle failed, but because you confused the principle with the person. Let me give you an example. Say you admire a great speaker. You watch their videos, you listen to their tone, you see how they tell stories, and you think, that's what I'll do. I'll speak exactly like them. Now you might sound like them for a while, but here's the danger. You're wearing their voice instead of finding your own. People might applaud your imitation for a moment, but they won't remember you. They'll remember the person you're copying, and eventually you'll feel like a stranger in your own skin. Learning is about gathering tools, not building someone else's house. You take the hammer from one teacher, the saw from another, the blueprint from yet another. But when you start building, you decide the size of the rooms, the style of the roof, the view from the window. That's how you create something that is truly yours. If you follow someone blindly, you inherit not just their wisdom, but also their mistakes, their blind spots, their limitations. And that's dangerous, because you won't see the trap until you've stepped right into it. Observation without thinking is like driving with someone else's map in a city you've never been to. If they're wrong, you're lost. I always say, don't just believe it because I said it. Think about it. Test it. Run it through your own experience. If it works for you, keep it. If it doesn't, adjust it. This is how you learn without losing yourself. One of the smartest things you can do is become a student of many. Don't rely on just one mentor, one voice, or one perspective. Gather wisdom from a variety of sources so you can compare, contrast, and choose what fits best for you. That's how you avoid getting trapped in someone else's way of thinking. There's a balance to strike here. You must be humble enough to learn from others, but confident enough to adapt what you learn. You must be willing to admit you don't know everything, but unwilling to surrender your judgment entirely. Because at the end of the day, it's your name on your life, not your mentors, not your heroes, not the crowds. When you study someone successful, ask yourself, what is the principle behind what they're doing? If they get up at 5 a.m. every day, the principle isn't necessarily wake up at 5. The principle might be start your day with discipline and focus. And for you, that might mean 6 a.m. or even 7, depending on your lifestyle. The point is to extract the why behind the what. That's where the real value is. So learn from many, but follow no one blindly. Borrow their strategies, but write your own playbook. Take their lessons, but give them your signature. Because the world doesn't reward perfect imitators. It rewards original thinkers who know how to adapt the wisdom of others into something uniquely their own. And if you can master that, if you can be a lifelong learner who never sacrifices individuality, you won't just succeed, you'll succeed in a way that feels right, fits right, and lasts. That's the difference between copying someone else's life and building one you're proud to live. There's something comfortable about moving with the crowd. When everyone's going in one direction, it feels safe. It feels like you must be on the right track because, well, all these people can't be wrong, right? But history tells us something very different. Time and time again, the majority has been mistaken. The crowd has rushed into bad investments. The crowd has supported bad ideas. The crowd has ignored opportunities that were right in front of them. Here's the problem with the crowd. It's driven by comfort, not wisdom. Most people would rather be wrong with everyone else than risk being right all alone. It's human nature to want to belong. But belonging can be expensive when it costs you your judgment, your independence, and your future. The crowd follows trends without asking questions. They buy when prices are high because everyone else is buying. They quit when things get tough because everyone else is quitting. They complain because everyone else is complaining. If you're not careful, you'll get caught in that current. And before you know it, you'll be headed somewhere you never intended to go. I remember a time when I was told about a great investment. Everybody was talking about it. People were saying, you've got to get in on this, don't miss out. And you know what? A lot of people jumped in without even asking the most basic question, does this make sense? Well, you can guess what happened. It all fell apart. People lost a fortune because they were following noise instead of thinking for themselves. The truth is, following the crowd is the fastest way to get average results. And average is just another word for ordinary. If you want an extraordinary life, you can't take your cues from people who are settling for less. You've got to be willing to step aside, to think differently, to act differently, even if that means standing alone for a while. Now, that doesn't mean you reject the crowd just to be different. Being different for the sake of being different is just as foolish as following blindly. The goal is not rebellion. It's wisdom. The goal is to make decisions because they are right for you, not because they are popular with everyone else. If you want to test whether you're following the crowd or thinking for yourself, here's a simple question. If everyone stopped doing it tomorrow, would I still do it? If the answer is no, then you're probably being carried by the tide, not steering your own ship. The danger of the crowd is that it numbs your mind. It replaces thinking with copying. It makes you lazy in your decisions because you're outsourcing your judgment to what everybody else is doing. And when you outsource your judgment, you're also outsourcing your destiny. I encourage you to develop what I call crowd resistance. Crowd resistance doesn't mean ignoring all input. It means pausing to evaluate it. It means asking yourself, does this align with my values? Does this fit my goals? Does this pass the test of logic and common sense? If it doesn't, have the courage to walk a different road. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in history came from people who refused to follow the crowd, innovators, leaders, and thinkers who were willing to look foolish for a season in order to be proven right in the long run. They understood that the road to greatness is rarely crowded because most people won't leave the comfort of the herd. So don't let the crowd decide your future. Observe them if you must. Learn from their successes and their mistakes. But at the end of the day, step back and make your own decision. Because the crowd won't be there to pay your bills, to live your life, or to carry your regrets. That's all on you. And if you're going to carry the responsibility for the outcome, you might as well take the responsibility for the choice. That's how you keep yourself out of the crowd's traps and on your own path to where you really want to go. One of the greatest powers you have in life is the power to think for yourself. It's what separates human beings from every other creature on this planet. The ability to reason, to weigh options, to see the future consequences of today's decisions. Yet, strangely enough, most people hand that power away. They let someone else do their thinking for them. They follow instructions without asking questions. They take advice without filtering it through their own judgment. And then they wonder why their life ends up feeling like it belongs to someone else. Here's the truth. Your mind is your best asset, but only if you use it. You can't run your life on someone else's brain. You can't let the crowd, your friends, or even your mentors be your substitute for thinking. You've got to be the final authority on your own choices. Now, I'm not saying you should be closed off to advice. Far from it. You should listen to many voices. You should welcome new ideas, even ones that challenge what you believe. But here's the key. Listen actively, not passively. Take in the idea, turn it over, examine it from every angle, and then decide, does this fit me? Does this line up with my values? Does this move me closer to my goals? If the answer is yes, great, adopt it. If the answer is no, politely set it aside and keep moving. The danger comes when you skip that process. If you take every piece of advice at face value, you'll live in a constant state of confusion, pulled in a dozen different directions. One day you'll be chasing one person's strategy, the next day you'll be copying another's lifestyle, and before you know it, you've lost all sense of who you are and where you're going. Thinking for yourself is about owning the decision-making process. It means you accept responsibility for the outcome, good or bad, because you made the choice consciously. And there's freedom in that. When you make your own decision, you can live with it. You can adjust it if you need to. But when you simply follow orders or trends and it goes wrong, you're left with nothing but blame, and blame is a terrible foundation for a life. I've met people who would rather be told what to do than think about what to do. It's easier that way. Thinking takes effort. It requires time, research, and reflection. But the effort is worth it, because the quality of your life is directly connected to the quality of your decisions, and the quality of your decisions comes from the quality of your thinking. So how do you strengthen your ability to think for yourself? First, slow down. Don't rush into every opportunity or jump on every trend. Give yourself space to analyze. Second, ask better questions. Questions like, what problem is this solving for me? Or what's the downside if this goes wrong? Third, gather perspectives from people you trust, but remember their opinion is input, not instruction. And here's one more thing. Thinking for yourself doesn't mean you'll always get it right. You won't. But here's the beauty. When you own your decisions, even the wrong turns become valuable. You learn, you grow, you adapt, and the next time you make a better choice. I'll tell you something else. People respect independent thinkers. They might not always agree with you, but they'll know you have the courage to stand by your convictions. And in a world where most people drift with the current, that alone makes you stand out. So don't give away your mind. Don't outsource your thinking. Treat advice like raw material. You shape it, refine it, and turn it into something that works for your life. Because at the end of the day, you're the one who has to live with the results. And if you're going to live with them, you should be the one who chooses them. A real mentor is not in the business of creating followers. A real mentor is in the business of creating thinkers, creators, leaders, people who can stand on their own 2 feet. If all a mentor does is produce a line of carbon copies, they've failed. The goal is not to make you another version of them. The goal is to help you become the best version of you. When I think back to the mentors in my own life, the ones who really made a difference weren't the ones who told me exactly what to do every step of the way. They were the ones who asked me the tough questions, who gave me principles instead of prescriptions, who challenged me to think deeper and aim higher. They didn't hand me a ready-made life. They handed me tools, ideas, and the responsibility to build my own. Too many people approach mentorship like a shortcut. Tell me what to do so I don't have to figure it out. But that's not learning, that's dependency. And dependency will keep you small. You might get quick results in the beginning, but you'll never grow past the shadow of your teacher. You'll be limited by their perspective, their experiences, and yes, even their mistakes. A good mentor will never ask you to give up your individuality. They'll respect your differences. They'll understand that your strengths, your circumstances, and your goals aren't identical to theirs. So while they might share the principles that work for them, they'll encourage you to adapt them to fit your own life. Now here's the thing, you have to be a good student to get the best out of a mentor. And being a good student doesn't mean nodding your head and doing exactly what they say. It means listening with an open mind, taking notes, asking questions, and then testing what you've learned in the real world. Some of it will fit perfectly. Some of it you'll need to adjust, and some of it you'll discover doesn't work for you at all. That's okay. That's how you grow. I've seen people idolize their mentors so much that they lose the ability to make their own decisions. They start dressing like them, talking like them, even thinking like them. But here's the problem. Your mentor's life is not your life. Their challenges are not your challenges. Their opportunities are not your opportunities. If you follow their exact path, you might miss the unique path you were meant to walk. The best way to honor a mentor is not to become them. It's to take what they've given you and go further. Make it better. Expand it. Apply it in ways they never imagined. That's how you show you've truly learned. A mentor's job is to light the fire, but you're the one who has to keep it burning. And let me tell you something. You will outgrow some mentors. That's not disloyalty. That's progress. A good mentor will be proud when you move beyond their lessons, because it means they did their job well. They prepared you to stand on your own, to think for yourself, and to lead in your own right. So if you have a mentor, value them. Learn everything you can. But remember, the goal isn't to follow them forever. The goal is to eventually walk your own path with confidence. And if you ever find yourself mentoring someone else, remember to pass on that same gift. Don't create a copy, create an original. Because in the end, the true measure of a mentor is not how many followers they have, it's how many leaders they've helped create. And if you learn to approach mentorship this way, you'll never just repeat someone else's story, you'll write your own. At some point, you've got to come to terms with this simple truth. Your life is your responsibility, not your parents, not your boss, not your friends, not your mentor. You're the one in the driver's seat. And whether you steer toward success or into a ditch is up to you. It's tempting to pass the blame when things don't go right. We say, well, I did what they told me to do, or that's the way I was raised, or it's not my fault. I was just following the plan. But here's the thing, even if someone else gave you the advice, you were the one who took it. Even if circumstances were tough, you're still the one who chooses how to respond. The moment you hand away responsibility, you also hand away your power to change anything. Owning your life means owning every part of it. The wins and the losses, the smart moves and the mistakes. It means saying, if I made the choice, I can make a different choice. If I took the wrong road, I can turn around. That's the beauty of responsibility. It puts you in control, and control is the first step toward freedom. Some people don't like responsibility because it comes with pressure. If you own your results, you can't hide behind excuses. You can't point fingers when things fall apart. But here's the other side of that coin. When you own your results, you get to own your success too. You get to say, I built this, I made this happen. That kind of pride, the pride of personal achievement, can't be bought. Now, taking full ownership doesn't mean you have to do everything alone. It's wise to seek advice, to get help, to build a team. But in the end, you're still the one who has to make the call, and you're the one who lives with whatever happens next. That's why it's so important to be deliberate with your choices. Don't just drift through life hoping things will work out. Steer. If you don't decide where you're going, life will decide for you, and it won't always be where you want to end up. I've seen people wait their whole lives for someone else to give them permission to start living. They wait for the right partner, the right boss, the right opportunity, the right economy. But here's the reality, if you wait for perfect conditions, you'll wait forever. There's no perfect time to take ownership of your life. The time is now. Taking ownership also means being honest with yourself. If something isn't working, admit it. Don't pretend. Don't sugarcoat it. Face it head on, because the longer you deny a problem, the longer you give it power over you. The moment you say, this is on me and I'm going to fix it, you've already taken the first step toward turning it around. And remember this, you can't change your past, but you can shape your future. Every decision you make from this moment on is a chance to move closer to the life you want. That's why responsibility isn't a burden, it's a gift. It's the key that unlocks the door to a better tomorrow. So stop waiting for someone else to chart your course. Stop hoping the crowd will carry you where you want to go. Stop expecting your mentor to walk the road for you. This is your journey, your choices, your consequences, your rewards. The day you fully embrace that truth is the day your life changes. Because when you stop outsourcing responsibility, you stop outsourcing control. And when you stop outsourcing control, you finally become the author of your own story. And that, my friend, is the only way to live a life worth telling.